Greetings. How do you do? Thank you for your presence. I've got a mission statement, and this mission statement is about you and your relationship, our relationship to astrology, and how I'm here to empower you to that. I feel like, as a mission statement, as an astrologer, what I would like to see for the world is an opportunity to share and empower people to their relationship with themselves, with the cosmos, and with astrology, because it is actually that astrology is, in my experience, one of the finest tools for correlating ourselves to connect with both the atmosphere around us in our situations and experiences in the world, as well as with our psychological development, our shadow work, if you will, within ourselves, and as well as the bond which we get to share with our own story told, which is really close. So it's really allowing us to embody all of the different archetypes within time, where we air out all of our different stories in a very practical, logical manner. Really, it's the philosophy behind the lights of illusions and the recognition that you are the center of your own personal experience. You're a star and you're a spirit incarnate into the flesh. In fact, we're the divine source embodied. And so we're recognizing that we're not putting ourselves beneath things. It's a great opportunity to see that it's a shoehorn for putting us in our place, to put ourselves in our place, center stage. Yes, within this labyrinth, within this hall of mirrors, there's a quagmire of different vantage points to observe ourselves from. And the benefit is that if we can just hold a space for ourselves, as well as every other point of recognition within this place, we can start to find compassion and transparency and authenticity in how we express ourselves. In a sense, we are whole. Every different facet of our imagination, every different facet of reality is a reflection of ourselves. We're schooled by it. Even the pupil of my eye is pure darkness, for goodness sake. And so what is that a reflection of? We're all here to clear on our roots. The roots are the way of creation. We are the roots of creation. We're the offspring of creation. We are all of creation. In fact, the whole labyrinth is a reflection of the allotment within our space that we get to create with. And it is through the play, through the rigmarole of our relationships, mind, body, and spirit within this hero's journey of ours, that we get to air out every single facet, every single layer of our personal stories that we haven't recognized yet, our least recognized facets of our hearts, our traumatized parts. We actually get to play out really softly, kind of gently within this Mother Earth, within this nursery, within this atmosphere, which actually presents to us so gently all of our fears that make us feel inferior sometimes, whether it's the big stories in the world or our personal stories with ourselves and each other. But gently, as we show up, we recognize that we are not inferior to anything. And there's plenty of positives in the negatives, and there's plenty of negatives in the positives. And we're just developing a picture of ourselves. This experience here, we're actually finding the opportunity to recognize how we can sustain a frequency as we have a picture for our own consciousness, as we support our own consciousness as a vessel. We are within the vessel of the spirit realm. And it is in this plane where we really find the opportunity to exercise our own ability to recognize these facets of self which have actually fallen in disregard. And so it's a very empowering experience, and astrology, well, it's a fine tool for us. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the current sky for us to have a little gander at, and we're going to look at all of the current energies that we've got going on. And so thank you for being present, and thank you for the opportunity, Ivan, to be able to share on your platform. I'm able to share with you a variety of different things which we're working with in these current times, but there's a whole lot to talk about, and it's just about really recognizing that that's always changing, and how it applies to the unique chart of our own birth chart is obviously very, very deep and profound. And so this is the chart of the current time. I haven't prepared or organized anything to share with you guys specifically. I just knew I wanted to come on board and kind of share my mission statement for astrology. And that is that, yes, you have your own unique natal chart. Let's just say that we can look at the chart from 5 years ago from today. If I just take this sky back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the year 2017. Okay, this is an interesting year. I started doing interviews on my YouTube channel, Unifying Perspectives, in 2017. I interviewed Santos Bonacci and Simon Vorster, who's a fellow astrologer. And so this was a great time for me. I'd already been working as an astrologer for a fair few years, but I was really getting immersed within the craft and how I presented it. So imagine if this was the birth chart for something. We can see actually very powerfully in this birth chart on 20th of April 2017, Pluto, Lord of the Underworld, is 19 degrees of the way through Capricorn, and it's stationed at this point. Not only that, we also have Venus at 27 degrees of Pisces. That's its favorite sign. So funny. Today, we also still see that actually Pluto and Venus are both in Capricorn. Pluto hasn't moved, hasn't changed sign. It's actually gone to 28 degrees. Whereas Venus has gone around multiple times around the whole zodiac since that time. Neptune hasn't changed signs either, and it's still in Pisces. In fact, Neptune's gone up to 24 degrees currently, and it's at 13 degrees back 5 years ago. As well as this being the first day of Taurus. So basically, the sun is having its solar birthday. Obviously, it's the same day 5 years ago. That's not always the case, though, because we use a Gregorian calendar, and sometimes the sun could be still back in Aries, or it might even be at 1 degree of Taurus by this point. In fact, it is actually in the same degree, because today it was that the sun went into Taurus about 12 hours ago. And so Mercury was also at that same degree as the sun, interestingly, and well as the moon actually currently today in Sagittarius, very close to the Saturn of the birth chart of this made up time in 2017. And so what we're going to look at now in correlation to this is actually the two planets that really relate to the manifestation of things in a big way. And that is Saturn and Jupiter. If we look at Jupiter, Saturn, first of all, which is the farthest planet that we can see with our naked eye, we see that it's at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, and it was retrograde on the 20th of April 2017. And so it's actually the galactic center point. I can tell you a lot about just this position in the sky. I've got Saturn in Sagittarius, but it's at 14 degrees. So I actually had my Saturn return in 2015 when Saturn was at 14 degrees, or it was actually 2016, the year before, when Saturn was at 14 degrees of Sagittarius. And I was learning about all kinds of things, because when we have a Saturn do a return, it's a 28-year cycle. So that was the first time. The next one won't happen till I'm 57, something like this. And so very powerful. But also Saturn rules Capricorn, which is the sign after, and the planets, they go anti-clockwise around the zodiac as we're presenting it here. So the moon takes 28 days to do a full cycle. We have a new moon and a full moon every 28 days, whereas Saturn takes 28 years and the sun takes 360 days, whereas Jupiter, which we'll get to in a bit, takes 12 years. So focusing on this Saturn, since the past 5 years, the 20th of April 2017, when Saturn was at the galactic center, which is 27 degrees of Sagittarius, in the 12th house of Saturn, because Saturn rules Capricorn. So it's the sign before Saturn's house. Saturn also rules Aquarius. And so we can see that this is, in a sense, the closing time for Saturn. It's like, it's really stretched. Saturn's about boundaries. It's about containing. It's about restriction. It's about the farthest thing which I can see. So it's really going to support me that I know about it. And I'm keeping it in some kind of due diligence. It's all informed. It's informing me, you know, a certain reason or a certain symbol, you could suggest. Especially in Sagittarius, it's all about the philosophy of things. And so it's almost a bit like the coming to the end of some kind of philosophy. We're going to change some kind of ideal or image about something because it's coming full circle at this stage. That's what the synthesis of this energy truly is. And so when it's at the galactic center, it's really about coming into the opportunity to see things from another angle, to get clear, to be transparent, to return to the origins of time, which is beyond time. It's in between the moments. It doesn't really fit Saturn, which is why it's so stretched in this place. Regardless, if you were born with this and you were 5 years old, or you could even suggest that maybe you were born the last time Saturn was in this place, which would have been 28 years prior, so that's talking about 33 years ago, then what you're going to see now is that Saturn's almost smooth 60 degrees, because Saturn in the current sky today on April the 20th, 2022, is actually at 24 degrees of Aquarius. And it's going to keep going to 25 degrees of Aquarius. It won't go farther than that this year. I said, it's not going to go farther than 25 degrees of Aquarius this year. Next year, it will move beyond that and actually go into Pisces by this time next year. However, that's not until the earlier months of 2023, the springtime, if you will. It may be actually February. So we could look into that. But the point is that now we have a 60-degree harmonic opening, especially once it gets to 25 degrees. It's like very close to a perfect 60-degree sextile. This is a harmonic opening. And so if this was your birth chart, people watching this, and I was to say to you how you're going to structure and support yourself, not just as a 5-year-old, but maybe as a 33-year-old, maybe as a 50-something-year-old. You're looking to build a reputation in regards to your own gifts and talents, or in your community, what you're able to offer people, how you're able to make people believe into the support system which you're offering others, this type of stuff, because Saturn is opening on its 28-year journey. It's 5 years into it. And so it's like going on in a new journey. You might be starting a new business, you might be planting new seeds, but you certainly got this kind of, I'm going out on a limb direction. And so that's really what this offers you, is this knowledge to know where you're at within space and time. It gives you this knowledge to know that actually by the time that Saturn makes it further down the line, for instance, 3 years later, once it's at where Venus is in this chart, 27 degrees of Pisces, which is a square to Saturn in this natal chart. It's a challenging square. Like Venus is like, I'm going to break the values of this template that's been set. But it's like, hey, that's a pioneering, rebellious kind of move. It's like unconformist. But anyway, once you're going off on a limb, it's not conforming to the old template. You're like, I was already renowned as an astrologer, but now I'm learning the guitar and I'm getting pretty good at it, and I can perform songs about astrology. And this is going out and it's kind of ruining one's own reputation to build a brand new one. And it's like, that's going to support you. It's going to bring you a new current. It's going to bring you an opportunity to perform in different levels, to bring astrology to people in different groups. And so that's one of my ambitions, for instance. I'm just projecting it onto the situation. And that'll be 7 years into a Saturn cycle, because we say that it's actually 7, 7, 7, 7 are the quarters of a Saturn cycle. Altogether, you get in your 28-year Saturn cycle. And so this is the brilliance of knowing astrology. We know where we're at within space and time. And if you're playing within an orchestra, then you know the music that came before you, and you know the music that comes after you. You know exactly when to chime in and to perform. And it's not so much of a struggle. So it really sets the standard, says Saturn, who used to be called Set in the ancient Egyptian pantheon, and it really sets the scene for your manifestation, which Saturn's all about practicality. It's all about showing up. It's all about, sometimes you might feel the squeeze, but actually you're granting yourself time to work on this particular area of life to bring you into the foundation of your own riches and glory, so you can continue to manifest. It's actually about showing that you don't need an external support. You've got backbone and you're showing up for yourself. And you're able to build your own craft mastery within the time allotted. And so it really allows you to work very practically in the manifestation of your own mastery. Whereas Jupiter is more about the expansive, I've got belief, beyond belief, I've got faith. I recognize the spirit within this kind of mundane space. Yeah, we live in a very physical world, and yet we can do very magical things within this physical world when we have faith. And yet the physical world, well, it'll grind you down, doesn't it? Those bastards, don't let them grind you down. But the physical world can do when we externalize our power, which often we frequently do. And this, we're in that golden harmonic, doing something that we love, laboring away, building a foundation of something like what we were just talking about with Saturn. However, you've got to have faith to be able to do that. And it takes a few experiences to knock off the old doubts for us to be able to go off into that kind of heroic, self-knowing experience. I mean, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's stories are different, right? But every 12 years, we have a new Jupiterian cycle. Unlike Saturn, it takes 12 years for Jupiter to do a full cycle. And so, in fact, we have 2 Jupiter cycles within the first Saturn one and a bit more. I actually had my 3rd Jupiter return recently. I only had 1 Saturn cycle, almost up there through into the first quarter. It will be, as I say, in a couple of years' time, Saturn will be on my first quarter journey. So I know that I'm going off in this new direction, particularly. However, with Jupiter, I just had a Jupiter return. So that's 3 12-year cycles. Yes, I'll be 36 this year. And so, in fact, I have Jupiter in Pisces. It was just a few weeks or months ago that I had my Jupiter return. However, in this chart, we see that Jupiter is currently in Libra. And so, this was just 5 years ago. And yet Jupiter has gone all the way through Scorpio, Sagittarius, its home sign, Capricorn, where it was in 2019 and 2020. For the first time, we had Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in Capricorn in 735 years. The last time was the year 1284. That's why we had the hoopla of the Great Reset and the financial world reset and all the things which we're now pioneering within this new world, which we're getting to grips with, if you will, catching up with. We all got caught up in the last world. It's a bit to untangle from, right? We're just getting centered, I suppose. However, Jupiter went all the way through Aquarius after the Great Conjunction, which we had at the end of 2020. And then Jupiter this year, the year of the Tiger, has been in its home sign of Pisces. And in fact, it is actually going into Aries on May the 10th, in about 20 days from now as I record this video. And so what we're going to recognize is that actually it's going to be almost the Jupiter opposition. However, Jupiter only goes up to 8 degrees of Aries, where it shall go retrograde in August, and it will go back into Pisces over the autumnal period through October, November, even the beginning of December, before returning into Aries. And so we don't quite get the opposition to this chart, where Jupiter was in Libra, until it will be the early spring, maybe even the late winter in 2023. So we're talking February into March. Likely February, I would imagine. Obviously, I could look at that, but I'm just working with this. Let's just have a look at it, shall we? Let's just show you that I can look. Let's just look at what it will be like a year from now. Look, Jupiter is already at 23 degrees of Aries. And so when we go back to the current, and then go back 5 years to that chart which we were looking at, that nature chart, 2017, we can see that actually, funnily enough, a year from now, as you just saw, Jupiter will be in a conjunction with the Uranus, and it would have surpassed the opposition. But anyway, we'll talk about that in just a moment. The opposition of Jupiter is a recognition that you're 6 years and halfway through your Jupiter cycle. So for all the way through 2022, it's building, it's building, it's building. It's like, hey, this year you're able to utilize, if we're doing a reading for this chart, if I'm reading your horoscope, I'm just doing a leading example of how we can know our cycle, whether it's Saturn or Jupiter for you. If you're having this opposition build, you're thinking, okay, what am I working towards? Because when I had my last Jupiter opposition, which 6 years ago, that's when I started doing astrology readings for people every day. And since then, I must have done hundreds, nearly thousands of astrology readings for people. And so I've become really within my mastery of it, a bit like what Jet Li says, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. It's not in always the knowledge, it's just in about being able to do it with your eyes closed, in a sense, intuitively, guided, whatever it is your craft is, whether you're a chef or whether you are a plumber, you could be you're a carpenter, you might be a musician, could be an astrologer, I don't know what it is, it could be a gardener. Regardless of what it is that you do, it's about loving what you do and doing it every single day, so that you kind of get that golden frequency of enjoyment, infatuation, self-respect. You really feel worthwhile when you do what you do, because no one's going to be able to do it just like what you do. And so the aesthetic of Jupiter in Libra is that I know that there's grace and beauty beyond the surface level of that which I'm observing. In fact, there's a fine aesthetic. There's even wisdom in that which I'm depicting with regards to the craft work of that which I'm sharing, whether it's the courtesy I share in my relationships or whether it's in the way I present my website. It's certainly a lot of grace and spiritual knowledge in that which is being shared. And so when Jupiter gets all the way into Aries, it's like, well, now I know that my handiwork's really good. It's about recognizing that I'm really worthwhile with regards to other people. And this opposition is the challenge, just like meeting the self with regards to the craft work, or meeting the other with regards to who I am. And so with the next 6 years closing with Jupiter going through that, and we'll recognize that there will be a Jupiter return in 20, oh, excuse me, what's it going to be? Let's just have a look at it, shall we? Jupiter will return to Libra 12 years from 2017. Let's just have a look, shall we? I actually have to navigate it. So let's have a gander. It will be that Jupiter will return into Libra in 2029, early on. And so we're going to see that that will be the return year. And so from the 6 years between 2023 and 2029, this character which we've made up that was born on the 20th of April 2017 will be, or but they'll either to be 12 years old, or they could be 24, they could be 36, they could be 48, you know, they might be older than that. And so this is just a Jupiter return for them, and they'll be going out on a whole new cycle because they've really developed the philosophy of how they present themselves beyond the surface level in reflection to others in a very deep and rich way. As a Taurus being, it's very interesting that to have that Jupiter in Libra and Venus exalted in their natal chart in Pisces. And so that really exemplifies how much of a Venetian character that this person born in 2017 on the 20th of April on this made-up date truly is. And so this is very cool. I'm going to give you just a couple more tidbits about this chart. And this is that the Sun and the Mercury, which are together having a Cazimi aspect here at the beginning of Taurus, which means that Mercury retrograde is having an interior conjunction. It's flying between the Sun and the Earth. It's actually, when you see that Mercury is the same degree, it's called a Cazimi because it's within the heart of the Sun. When Icarus gets its wings burnt by the Sun, it's actually finding an opportunity to let go of any useless information and upload and download strings straight through ourselves, straight through the cosmos. So a natural gift of this being, the riches of its own voice, has been able to talk and channel in a very creative way. Not only that, the Sun and Mercury both make a sextile to the South Node at 0 degrees of Pisces, as well as make a trine to the North Node in Virgo. And this is very beautiful, very interesting, because we're looking at moving old belief systems, moving old experiences, moving our old blind faith into a more practical way of being, which is more grounded. The North Node in Virgo is looking at the details. We're looking at the details of what makes a practical spiritual vessel work. And that might be the yoga, it might be a good diet, it might be the way that we speak to ourselves in our day-to-day practices. And so this is something that we want to work on, and probably a great way to do this is to speak lovingly to ourselves in our day-to-day experiences if we're in this being, to really anchor a frequency of self-containment, self-recognition, enamorment, and enjoyment. And so that's a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make more videos for Ivan's channel for you guys. I'm going to probably come and do one talking about this energy which we're working with in general this year. However, we are going to be moving towards the eclipse season. And so this is just to whet your appetite for this. And this is a couple of eclipses. Firstly, a solar eclipse that takes place in Taurus. And this is in a conjunction with Uranus. And at the same time, Venus, which rules Taurus, is back actually at 27 degrees of Pisces in a conjunction with Jupiter. Oh, sweet. This is a partial solar eclipse, which means the sun's being eclipsed in the sign of Taurus, which is the moon's favorite sign for this new moon to be in. So this new moon in Taurus waxes into a full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio with the South Node. The North Node, Rahu, the head of the dragon, insatiable it is for gobbling things up, eats the sun, devours it, spits it out, and the sun reemerges. And it's just for a few moments, but it's only a partial eclipse. It's only a little bite that Rahu takes out of it. However, Ketu, the tail, which is our story, our hidden story in Scorpio, can be unveiling and disclosing a lot of parts and facets of our subconscious, whether it's the collective energy or our individual stories to us. So wherever the areas of your personal sky that's Scorpio and Taurus fall for you, it's going to be quite impactful because we've got these two eclipses. This does happen every 6 months. It's a total lunar eclipse, that second one. And so we can find through the eclipse portal, we're really aligning as individuals within our personal stories. I say focus on your storytelling, stay focused on your groove is my personal advice, as well as the collective consciousness in the overall arcing story of development with regards to what's going on as well. And so I'm going to do a video focusing on that. And this is the last cycle before Jupiter goes off into Aries, as it shall be. It's actually a couple of weeks we're actually going to have Mars in Aries, as well as Venus in Taurus, and Mercury after its retrograde, which takes place soon, in its home sign of Gemini. This is right at the end of the spring, just before we enter the summertime, but we'll have all those planets in their home signs. It's a tremendous time. And it's only for the next few days until the 29th of April, just before the next new moon solar eclipse in Taurus, that we have all planets moving direct, because Pluto's about to go retrograde just before Mercury does. Pluto will be retrograde until the 9th of October this year. So I've just smashed you over the head with lots of astrological information as we move towards the eclipse season. I'll be back potentially to talk about that in greater detail for you. However, I intend that this has whetted your appetite. If you'd like a personal consultation with me, you can get in contact via unityaroundthecorner@hotmail.com. That's my email address. I'm here to serve you, here to empower you. It's $200 for 1 hour consultation, or you can do a 2-hour consultation for $365. You can send that payment to my PayPal direct, unityaroundthecorner@hotmail.com, or you can find links underneath all of the videos on my YouTube channel, unityaroundthecorner@hotmail.com. In my consultations, where I empower you to your own unique natal chart, I will share your chart on the screen on a Zoom messenger call, just like how we shared the chart on the screen. And we'll walk through, we'll bring out the antithesis of what makes you you, and explain how that works for each of the various planetary archetypes, for each of the houses in aspect to one another. And so the more time that we get to do that allows us to go into each of your cycles, like what we did in the example with Saturn and Jupiter, because it's my intent that everybody knows where they're at within their cycles. Like, I know I just started a whole next 12-year Jupiter cycle. I know that I'm branching off out, not made it a quarter into my Saturn cycle, but I'm certainly determined. I've got a conquest, I've got an ambition, and that's to teach astrology and to learn about gardens and health, and to be able to bring music and synthesis into these astrology schools. And I've got some big ambitions, and I'm excited for these things, right? And I'm here to empower you to yours as well. So unityaroundthecorner@hotmail.com if you'd like to contact me. Check out my other videos on my YouTube channel, Unifying Perspectives. Thank you, Ivan, for holding a space and allowing me to share on your channel. I'm going to come back with some real interesting subjects in the upcoming weeks. This is the time of removing blockages this year. Year of the Tiger is an opportunity to remove things. It's not about coming first. It's not about a race with somebody else. It's about recognizing ourselves and our compassion that we're able to hold for ourselves as we remove ourselves from the shackles of our own limitations. And this is exciting because whatever weight we release, whatever load we've been carrying for some time, we might even forgot we're carrying it because we've been carrying this ailment or this old belief system or this old thing which we said we were going to do but we didn't quite get around to doing. But once we stop waiting, once we let the load off, then the manifestation won't keep us hanging around. We won't be waiting very long. The load time, well, it just dissipates. And so I'm here to serve you if you'd like any support in recognition with regards to that which you're releasing yourself from. Thank you for holding yourself in high loving regard. Thank you for recognizing that you're worthwhile. My name's Philip, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share with you. Thank you for holding a space of grace with yourself, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Cheerio for now.